Kia ora, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm sitting here with my friend
And
we are going to take us through his journey and everything, and we hope you enjoy. Mate, it has been forever.
It's been a while, man.
It's actually been forever. And it was weird the last time when we caught up and we were talking about it, how you can be in someone's life like regularly. Because you were talking about Hannah, who's my stepsister. So for those of you who are listening, Ez that we have in here was at... Well, actually, I'll let you tell the kind of where you came in with the other side of my family, and then where I came in after that.
Oh, yeah. Well, when we were younger, play centre in Hataitai.
Yeah.
Both my dad and Helen both took me and Hannah to play centre.
Yeah.
So we went to play centre from maybe like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And then we went to primary school all the way through lower base school and intermediate.
Yeah.
So that was how, and our families are, like my dad and Helen, probably like best mates. They've known each other for so long. They've worked together. And so, we were kind of be intertwined on that side of, until later on where probably just after that, we probably met playing rugby.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, because that happened, and then just like, weirdly, we just don't see each other for the longest time. And then, those worlds start coming back together because obviously people go do their own things. And then just out of nowhere, you come back and then you have weird connections, like besides the connection that we had from having similar pasts, but then also things that we go on to do and the mentality that we have and all those different things and just the groups that we surround ourselves with. It's kind of cool to like see that connection and see that growth in the both of us. So it's been cool. I mean, now that we have social media and stuff, we can see what people are up to.
Yeah, you can catch up properly, yeah.
But then it's that weird conversation where like we haven't seen each other for like an entire, pretty much all of high school,
almost a decade.
Yeah, most of uni, but I kind of know what you've been up to. So this is a cool time to see what you have been up to. So you finished at RC, and then you actually go into, figuring out really what it is in this world that's going to be your thing. So what happened after that?
So pretty much, I went to uni straight out of school. Went to Victoria with a couple of my mates, and like talk on her.
Yeah,
we went and studied design. But that year, I kind of just went to university because I had GES, I had everything to get into uni, but I had a vague idea of what I wanted to do. When I was younger, my dad kind of asked what did I want to do when I grew up.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to be a cartoonist. I want to draw cartoons. That's what. And my dad was like, well, how are you going to do that? I was like maybe 5 or 6, when I told him that. And so I wanted to do things around animation and visuals and visual effects. That's kind of like what I wanted to do. But once I went to uni, I was like, oh, there's a lot of theory. I'm learning a lot about the culture and context and the way that why the design looks the way it is,
right.
But I wasn't kind of making it.
Yeah.
And I feel that's more of my area. I feel like I could just make something and then, I can tweak it and improve it. Whereas they were like, this is the whole theory and I'll make it.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, that's not how I work. It's not really how I operate.
Yeah.
I ended up dropping out that year.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I dropped out, and I dropped out of uni and we ended up working at the airport.
Yeah.
Washing dishes, clearing tables and stuff. Then I went into a call center where, honestly, man, we were getting sworn at on like hourly basis.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Far out.
That was like a 8-hour day. It was just a normal day. But we were cold calling people saying, we have a survey.
Right.
Hi, my name is Ezra from Research New Zealand. How are you today? That kind of stuff. Yeah. And so people get annoyed that we've called their house.
For sure.
And
without anyone prompting them that this is going to happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. Some people you call and they're like, I'm at a funeral, and you're like, thank you for your time. And there's those are kind of things, but nothing around in that workplace would even, prompt you to let you know that these kind of things are going to happen, and so in that position, I was like, okay, I may have not liked uni in the theory base, but I hate this. This is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
So then it was maybe 4 or 5 years because I had to pay a fee off to Victoria because I stuffed up my study link.
Yeah, right.
And so once I paid that off, then I was able to go back I went to Welltech.
Right.
Yeah, I went to Welltech and studied there, and it was really, really hands-on.
Yeah.
Way more practical than I even anticipated. Like first week, they're like, okay, I don't care if you know nothing about anything.
Yeah.
Just make something, and then we'll grade it at the end of the week.
Awesome.
And you're kind of a bit nerve-wracking because
They've just given you free reign to do whatever you want, and like, well, how do I get marked on this? Yeah.
Exactly. But what they're doing, what I guess the process that they went through now, understanding it, that I've gone through the whole thing, is that you need that freedom of expression in order for you to refine it.
For sure.
Yeah, and so I guess that was a big part of what they taught us at Welltech. And yeah, and then so leaving there.
So just before we do what's the difference between, so like you said you went to Victoria, which is a university, and then you went to Welltech. What's the difference, like just for the people who are international listeners and whatnot, in terms of their education structure?
Oh, yep. So Victoria University.
Yep.
I guess what they do teach, and what I think was a good basis from when I arrived at Welltech, was that because I understood the theory of why an image reads in a certain way, or why a story is told in this way, it helped me when I did get this, do whatever you want. I was like, oh, I can, process that a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think the difference was Welltech, which is a polytech, was more just hands-on, in project outcome.
Yeah.
Whereas at Victoria, it was more explain the entire process before you do. I was only there for 1 year, so it could have changed throughout, but that's from what I kind of gathered from it.
Yeah, but it's one of those cool things that you kind of took your time to figure out what worked for you. I know a lot of people end up in one system because they think that's the right system and that's the one system that's going to get them to where they need to get to. But like if they're failing miserably, or if it feels like it's not quite the thing for them, they just have that grind and stick it out mentality when there's actually other options available, and it's never looking down on something else because it's not a university or something, but they could cater to you. And then there was another thing where I was like 5 or 6, thinking about being a cartoonist and thinking about expression. So mine was always words, talking, writing. That's always how I've been able to express myself. But like the art side, or being able to put it out in another form, what was it at 5 or 6 that made you feel like, I want to draw stuff, like I want to be able to show people like through cartoon?
I always drew.
Yeah.
Like there was just something, like I'll be in class and teachers telling us whatever, and I'm just drawing. I'll be drawing in the corner. There's back when we had 1B5s or whatever, and there was that square in the top right hand corner.
The red line and the blue line.
Every single one was filled, and every single one of my books. But so when I was little, I was obsessed with Batman.
Right.
Obsessed with Batman.
And for those watching as well, he's got the Batman on the ring right now.
And so we would go to Amalgamated.
Yeah.
And
for those of you too young, Amalgamated was a video store.
Yes, and it survived most video stores. It outlasted Blockbuster and Civic. But we would go every Thursday when they had $3, $4, or $7 or whatever, and I always got Batman out, and I was always I just watch it, and I was just fascinated by now studying it. That series, Batman series, is regarded as one of the most unique animated series.
Really?
Because it was drawn on black paper.
Oh.
So that it was, it's actually dark, and I didn't know that it was some influential animation. I just liked Batman, and so, but that was kind of maybe my basis.
Sure.
And so I was like, how do I do this?
Yeah.
What do I do to make this? It must be able, someone made it, and I think that was where I was like, I feel like I want to do that too. It's something that I like, I'm interested in, and so I want to pursue that, I think. And
from that first point of you telling dad that this is what you want to do, to getting to a point where you can finally study the thing that you think you want to do, has it always been that's the thing, like from that point to where you are now?
Yeah,
really.
Honestly, it has.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do it, and I would even I'll draw my own little characters when I was younger, and as progressed, I still draw characters today, and I think it was kind of definitely for my dad was like what but I had rest of my family saying, you should be a lawyer, you should be an accountant, you should be a doctor, you should be XYZ. And I was like, oh, I just want to draw pictures, you know. And in some ways, it was kind of like my family were like, what do you mean, you know? In ways, but they always supported what I did. They were always supportive, and was like, you know, get it done. But for me to actually think about what I wanted to do at that time, I studied accounting as well, at school, and I did give them a go, but I was like, I want to make that, and so that was just something I kept pursuing and kept learning more about, and also helps. I just watch anime. It's like, oh yeah, I learned that technique, you know, like this is research, but. I guess that's pretty much
so you're drawing on different influences because you're going to be watching a lot of it, right? So I find that when I'm reading certain articles or starting to write in a certain way, I can start to see my writing evolve, and I'm like, I definitely know where I was. So like if I go back and read old readings, I'm like, that's right. Definitely. This is when I was obsessed with this writer. So for you, who were like who have been the staples kind of over your eras of becoming who you are as an artist?
Oh yeah. Definitely like the Studio Ghibli movies.
Right.
Yeah. They're probably like Spirited Away.
Yeah.
Princess Mononoke. Like Ponyo. Those were like just beautiful. But the very first movie that my mom said when I was 18 months, I could set up The Lion King, put it in, play it.
Yeah.
Like she was pregnant with my sister.
Yeah.
So she was like, put your movie in, you know, and I was like 18 months and I could press play and, you know, start rewind it and all that. So Lion King was probably one of the biggest influences on my everything, really. Like, could be the narrative, the way stories are told, you know, like quirky little humor, sometimes things in the animation. A lot of it comes from Lion King, you know, as a whole.
You know, it's so cool because I think we don't really pay too much attention to like those earlier formation phases of who we are, but a lot of that actually plays into it, and a big part of what I've seen. So like, was there something in your family, like were there any artists in your family? Because like we look at your family now, you're like, oh, Ez is the artist, but was there anyone else who was kind of or maybe even someone who you went to school with, or a teacher who made you feel like art could be something you could do, or did you have to go on that by yourself?
Like my dad can paint and draw. He was always someone that was kind of like, oh, I want to try to draw like that, you know.
Yeah,
like,
right.
He can draw so fast, and my mum, she also draws as well. They're such polar opposites in terms of the way they draw. Dad is like, okay, I've got this massive wall, I could probably fill it in like 5 minutes,
right?
You know, and it's like, whoa, like it's quite an epic piece. Mum was more like, we'll spend a long time drawing like one thing, you know. So I guess there was variation of artistic styles in my own house, you know. But yeah, I guess like Tokana, here's someone else that complete different art style to me, but you know, very intriguing. And so both of us, we studied animation at Rongsai as well together. So yeah, it was kind of a lot of different influences around me that had those I guess that skill set, and something that I also was like, oh, okay, cool. I want to get better because I see that you have, there is a way to get better, you know, and there is different styles and different things to grow from, I guess.
Yeah. And then when you're going through that, so the cool thing about everything that we're doing now is that we have so much technology coming out as well. So you start off, as we were talking about, the 1x5 square in the corner, like just drawing on that, maybe pencil, and then you finally get some cool felts and all that. But now we're actually getting to move on to iPads, and we're getting to move on to pretty much things where you feel like, damn, there's like nothing that's impossible now. How has that journey been for you? And like, has it been something that you're like, damn, I just learned this, now I have to learn something else? Or have you been embracing it the whole way?
Yeah, I think I have been, I guess, embracing it the whole way. It's probably more, I used to make, my grandma, she was like one of the first computer programmers.
What?
In New Zealand.
No way.
So she was working at home in like the 90s.
Holy. Really?
Yeah.
A computer programmer.
Yeah.
One of the first in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
So when her old work computer was finished, then it was like, then it came to the family.
Right.
So I had access to a computer very young, like real young. And so I'd muck around on MS Paint.
Yeah, of course.
You know, like, you know, making whatever or try. But I would, like every day, I would just jump on Paint and like make another image or a graphic or just something. Then I learned that you could animate on it.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, oh, like, you know, little stick figure stuff,
yeah.
you know. And so from there, now I have a Wacom tablet,
Right.
which I draw, like, animate on. So I guess going from the 1B5s to paint to there, I guess I have been able to keep up with the technology that's coming out, I guess. And it's quite interesting because none of the animation techniques change.
Yeah, for sure.
Nothing changes.
Right.
It's just it looks prettier. You know, and
so the quality of what you can do just becomes sharper.
Yeah.
But you're still doing the same process.
It's the same process. Yeah, it's the same process, which is really interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then from that, so just thinking about where it is going and how fast technology is kind of coming forward, and if you feel like that's going to be the case, do you feel like you could be safe then with a lot of what you're doing?
Yeah, I do feel. But I also feel if you've done something for a long enough period, when something new comes in, you should be able to add it to your repertoire or to your skill set. Yeah. So yeah, I do think it all comes in.
I think that's a really good mindset because I was just having this conversation before I came back up to Wellington, just with people who are like, nah, like we've always done it this way, and it's like, but that's the reason you're going to become stale, mate.
Exactly. It's like the All Blacks.
Yeah.
You know, they play one style and they only just win. The next time they come play a completely different style, and the other team's like, oh, we thought that'd make a slight adjustment, not an entire new game plan.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I guess
that's so true. Yeah, and just being able to just roll with it and just see. I mean, especially now we're in an era where literally next week I could have plans, and then they could just be like, "Oh no, actually we're shutting everything down. Shut it down. Change your plans."
That's I mean, that's the day and age we're in at the moment, eh?
Yeah.
So we're just something we've got to go through.
So obviously we see you now, and you're kind of at this era where it's like things seem to be working for you. So we'll talk about your new job, but we'll get there shortly because I think before people get to where they are, there is just a long grind. And so obviously 5 to now, that's a very, very long time. But also, you know, trying to get paid for this sort of stuff because, you know, these aren't the things where people are like, okay, you go be a doctor, you're going to get paid this much. But like this stuff, you're selling your expression. So it's like people who want to be musicians, people who want to be actors, actresses, they have to put in so much work into a craft that may not necessarily be liked by a lot of people, but there might be that like niche group that like that's what we want. Yeah. So you just have to go through critique after just like looking at the different market coming in. How was that?
Oh, that was I guess what showed you that yellow brick road. Yeah. Because you go everywhere, you know, and like find out. So I've done a bit of work with NZQA. Yep. So I did. Actually, this job was pretty cool because I got an opportunity to meet 16 pretty much masters of their field. Yeah. Like, people that, like there was one that was a 25-year-old PhD. Right. You know, she had done a PhD and I interviewed her and she explained to me like why and what happened. I was like, whoa. Quite phenomenal stuff. And so, learning all of those kind of, all that information, and then what I had to do was then make 16 videos of who they are, I guess you'd say. And so working with NZQA, the very strict, rigid, governmental, you can only say 5 words, you know, and all of those 5 words have to be said in the right order, you know, and I found that quite difficult. Right. Because we also did an animation with them and we had to learn, we learned things about, so we were doing an island animation, right? And you know, island humor. If someone hits someone, it's funny, you know.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
And so we had that in our storyboard, and we did all of that. And then they came back at the moment we were starting to animate, and they were like, "Oh, we can't have that part in it." Right. And it's like, "Oh, that was the joke." Yeah. Now we have to change this whole this. So those kind of pathways where you're learning what you can do in certain areas, and then what you can't do is like, now I've come to the point where I'll go, oh, okay, I should already know this now. Sure. If I go to an organization, currently working with an organization called Great Fathers, and they're like, oh, we want this, and it's like, okay, but we need this before we can get there, and it's just that kind of experience that you go through to. No one can tell you that beforehand. Exactly. You know, no one can tell you what those people don't know until you go through it and then you say, oh, I can help them there. Yeah. Or I can explain that area there. So I don't know if that really answers your
No,
question.
it does. I think because all of that kind of goes through, you have to get that experience to, like, you don't know what you don't know. And then once someone, like, points it out, or you're going through the process and you're like, what's that thing? And you're like, oh, I didn't even know we needed that. And then once you go get that, every other time that you have to go through that, you're like, that's right, we need to get onto that. I can do that, or I know the person who can do that. But then
that's really important, knowing someone who can do what you're missing.
Exactly.
Very important.
And being able to work with those people, because I know there's a lot of people who just are very like, no, this is mine. And they find it really hard to outsource or like ask for help. And I'm just like, man, it'll make it so much easier.
But it is difficult. That's something I found really difficult, was giving that to someone.
Yeah.
And understanding that I'm not doing it. But then once you find people that you can work with and you can execute, it's like, breath of fresh air, man. Yeah.
I always liken that to like Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan stunt team. How like they just built a crew and built a network, and they're like, you have to like earn your way up to this, and then once we work together, that's us for life. We're sorted.
Yeah.
You find your crews, eh? But then with that, so freelance type of work, and then just talking about financial security and how nice that all is, and just how difficult it is to explain to people that this is what you want to do. It may not pay now, and there may be eras of just like, shit, this is rough. I'm not sure if we're going to get through or not. How did you like convince yourself that this is where you needed, this is still what you needed to go through, and that it will pay off in the end?
I think with that, I kind of transitioned from uni to working at a very similar time.
Right.
So I guess because in the creative field, no one really wants to see if you've got a piece of paper that says you can do it.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What really matters is, what does it look like?
Are you doing it? Yeah.
Here's my portfolio. That's people don't really care about the piece of paper because it's not so much as prestigious. But when while I was studying, there was people saying, oh, can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? And I was like, oh yeah. So that was a way, it was like, okay, I can do this for $50.
Right.
As a student, you don't really know what to charge.
Yeah.
You have no clue because in theory, a lot of what you're giving is pixels on a screen.
Yep.
And what it transfers into is the marketing and all of that.
Sure.
But for us that are making it,
Yeah.
it's the same, I guess, output. And so when you're charging, you're like, I think that's right.
Right.
I haven't charged before, but if someone pays you for $50 for that, it's at least worth $50.
Yeah, right.
And so the next time you make something, it's probably going to be better than you made the first one.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, I have a little bit more experience. Okay, maybe it's $70. And so that kind of mentality you take from that $50 to $70,
Yeah.
and then later on when you've got larger contracts,
Yep.
it's a similar way. But yeah, convincing yourself that you're gonna get paid, man, it's tough, man. It's tough. So I drove Uber.
Yeah.
I drove Uber through the period of freelancing as well. So I was still gonna get paid, like as in I'm working.
Yeah.
But it was just sometimes I'd have to go. You drive Uber for like 6 or 7 hours, and then you come home and you're like working for another 6 or 7 hours. It's like, when do I stop? When do I stop? But yeah, so coming from a freelance, it was kind of, that's also a creative process
For sure.
because you got to market yourself.
Yeah.
And that's an area that I kind of found a little bit difficult because I don't really like putting myself out onto social media or putting myself out there, so much. So being a designer, it's a little bit more difficult to get jobs. But I was just lucky that I knew a lot of people that needed work or knew I did work like that. And so, yeah, it's kind of like almost luck.
Right.
Almost luck, but only luck there. Oh, it's only lucky if you're ready for that opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because
so-
that's the thing is like you could have known the people, but then when they asked you if you wanted to do the work and you just weren't up to scratch, they'll be like, oh, we like it, but we're gonna have to look elsewhere.
Exactly. And those, but that's happened before, and those are the stepping stones that you got to go through because you're like, oh, I can't just give someone anything, because that doesn't work, So yeah, there's definitely a part of the process.
And what were the difficult parts of, so like, because you need to work as much as possible so that you can be paid, but you also have like, so you want to, it's this weird thing where you want to keep like your creativity high, you want to keep your artistic craft high, but you want to be getting paid and you need to be looking for jobs. How do you when do you get to that point where you're just like, I'm producing shit now? Like, how do you have that honest chat with yourself? Like, am I still producing good stuff, or am I now just doing this so that I get paid?
Yeah, you definitely. I've definitely came to that point.
Yeah.
Where I've looked at and I'm like, some people go, oh, I need it here on this day.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, no, I need it, but we need it for 2 weeks. But can you send it through on this day?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, like I don't want to send them this. This is not something that I would be proud of seeing anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like sitting there going, oh, I have to send it to them because I have to.
Yeah.
And so I send it through, and then they're like, oh, I really like it, thank you. And I'm like, but if they're on the other side of it is the person that's receiving it, they wouldn't know that you don't, they wouldn't know that it's not the highest standard that you think you could do. Because often, sometimes it's like, oh, I've got a week to do this, and then they're like, okay, can you do it? And it's like, okay, but who's your business? What what's your market? Who am I? What am I making this for? Like, who do you want to see this? So often that process takes longer than making the,
for sure.
Making it, because I need to understand what it is that we're creating. Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely sometimes you find yourself just, there's like shit, and you're like, I don't want to give this out. And it took a lot for me to even send something, to say, just tell me if you like it or not. But as it gets on, like, worked with a lot more clients. Now I realize it's just a part of the job. Whereas I was looking at it as this is an art piece that I've created, and now they're going to critique it. But if you look at it as this is a graphic for the business, it's not the same. It's not the same emotional response.
Yeah. They're not attacking you as an artist. They're like, in terms of our business and in terms of what we're trying to target, this doesn't quite do it. And then, but how do you get into? So this is another one where it's like, your stuff, and then you're talking to people who don't know this stuff, but they know what they want, and they find it hard to express. How do you bridge that gap between people who kind of know what they want, and then also like you could have something really awesome, and they're like, how about this? And then like, how? I mean, because at the end of the day, they want what they want, and you can give it to them. But how do you get over that whole
pick their brain? That part is conversation, man. As long, I feel like if you can conversate and you can understand, I feel like understanding is a big part of it, because it is communication. We're communicating to their audience, and if they can't communicate that to us, or we can't come to a happy consensus, but you're right. That's a really difficult part of the process, because it's like explaining someone how to do a magic trick,
right?
But they know nothing about magic. So you can't say, "Oh, you need to grip the ball, the card in this way," or they'll be like, "What? Like, what is that?" And so, likewise, when it comes to design or visuals or animation, like right now, we're going through a process where normally I do the narrative, ish. I do the narrative, the dialogue, and like the setting of the animation, and my partner, my mate, she does all the visuals and stuff. And so this contract that we're currently working with, they've said, oh, we'll do the narrative and we'll do the setting. And I'm kind of like, then they gave it to us, and I was going, do you mind if I alter it? Because it wouldn't translate. Or I don't think it would translate from my expertise in animation, that this is not grasping. It doesn't, in animation, you don't want to watch a boring animation. Like, that's not the point of animation, is that it's kind of surreal. It has elements of reality, but surreal. But some, like the people we're currently working with, I struggle to see that. And trying to tell them this is what we can do, and this is like the breadth, or as precise as it could be, then that kind of area, you almost have to come up with a checklist, and say, have you got this? Have you got this? Have you got this? And once again, this has only come down to experience, from experience, that we've learned those kind of checklists to tick off.
But that's the difference between like actually knowing your craft and letting your ego get in the way, right? Because you don't want to be like, oh no, I think that's dumb. Just because I think it's dumb, but like actually,
through my expertise, this is a consultation advice. rather than just saying, "Oh, I look dumb."
I mean, it comes with maturity as well, and you know what you're doing, and then hopefully after working back and forth and going through it, they might finally be like, I see what you meant. Like, you probably just had a misunderstanding at some point as well. Man, that's cool. So just back to that, you said you were driving Uber.
Yeah.
And with the freelancing lifestyle, like, what does that actually look like for someone who's never had to, say someone just went straight into a salary job and never had to think about when they could get a next job? What are like the most, not dire, but what's quite usual for a freelancer who's like successful, but is always kind of like on that hunt for the next job?
But that's the thing, is you're always on that hunt.
Yeah.
And so when you're in a job, often you're trying to complete the task, like to the best of your ability, but you know that I need to send this off quickly so that I can do my next one.
Right.
And it might not be to the same person, but so time management is something I've had to drill into me because I've something never come natural. Like, I was late to school when like new entrants, and I was still late to school in seventh form, you know. So those are kind of things where when you come into freelancing, time management is more like than anything else.
Yeah.
You got to make sure that you have put time aside to do this piece, or and so when I was driving Uber, it was way helpful driving Uber because it's your own hours as well.
Sure.
So pretty much throughout that period, I was on my own clock.
Yeah.
But that also means you're never off the clock.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I guess, in terms of like dire straits, you kind of struggle to be present. Yeah. Because you're thinking about what's next, and even like driving Uber, I'm like, I need to, when I get home, I'm gonna do this. I'm not even present when I'm driving. You're always thinking about what's happening next. So I guess But
even in your creative space, like, there's always something you could be drawing. There's always a new something you could be learning. How do you But if you're loving it, how do you get that difference, or start to see that some of what you're doing is actually getting detrimental because you're like barely resting anymore, but you think you're learning, so all of that sort of stuff. Like, how have you started to kind of block your life out so that you can finally have some time to yourself and be present?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because it's kind of like something that's only just been able to come into fruition, because now having a job, marketing job where it's not a freelancing position, it's kind of like, I can breathe. You almost take a step back and, I can smell the bruises. Yeah. It's not like I can't smell it before because I got to run to wherever I'm going, you know? So, I think I just lost myself in that analogy.
So it's just that like ability to actually have an environment that allows you to do it.
Oh, yeah. So, I play Tekken. Yeah. Play Tekken quite a lot, or used to. It's something that I've also played since I was little. Yeah. And I guess it has a bit of nostalgic feeling, and those are the kind of where you can remove yourself out of reality. When you are working. So I find that like Tekken, or even anime, or like Squid Games. Squid Games was one of the first movies or shows or series that wasn't animated that I was hooked in. Yeah. And it was like, I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm right here. What the hell is going to happen next? And so I feel like blocking in times to actually I have a sign on my wall that says it's okay to take a break. Because when you're freelancing, you don't even think about taking a break. Exactly. Like lunch break, dinner, you don't even think about it. You're just like often in a state of like, I have to get this out. Yeah. Or I can't get paid. And so blocking in times for like Tekken, it's a real fast-paced game, so everything that's happening really quick. So I have to think about what's happening right at that moment. I can't think about what's at work.
That's very true. Yeah.
So I feel like that's something that I'm able to do. Yeah.
So you found your thing that kind of brings you into the moment, and enjoy it as well.
Same as sport. Yeah. Like sport, those are things you have to make instantaneous decisions. Yep. So those are the kind of what keeps my mind in the moment is when I have to think about something right now. Yeah. So
that's cool, man. So speaking of the sport and speaking about the job you were just talking about, so you were lucky enough, or not lucky enough, sorry, you were ready for an opportunity that came up recently. So just tell us about how that came along and who you're working with, and then what you're probably going to be doing over the next season or so.
All right. Well, I've started a job doing the social media marketing. Oh wait, there's a proper title. Or communications and community marketing manager.
Nice.
Which is really long.
Yeah.
I'm like, can we just make it one word? But yeah, so what I do is manage the social media and marketing side of the post, the Te Wānanga Raukawa post. And yes, I'll take photos at their games and interview the players and come up with all of the graphics that you'll see on the post page.
Cool.
And it's all quite new as well, you know, being in the in a professional sporting environment. It's like, whoa, there's a whole lot of things I didn't know happens behind the doors. So.
And do you think it's going to help, because you were quite a high level netballer yourself, or an indoor netball, and you just had, you know, we've pretty much had like a younger sister almost, like growing up with us, who was just destined to do great things, and like just growing up watching their development and stuff, and just knowing a lot of the people in that circle. Do you think it's going to make it easier for you to be in that role because you kind of know how the game works?
Definitely. Definitely. It feels cool, to be honest, when I hear like netball chat happen around the office and I can contribute. Because, you know, we've got ex-Silver Friends coaches, you know, and like high performance people around, and like the umpires that's teaching the umpires how to umpire. So that's kind of like the top realm of netball. So when there's netball conversation and I do have an input and they're like, oh, interesting. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like it is somewhere that I should be, you know, and a little bit, like reassuring, I guess, being like reassuring that what I know is not just I think I know it. It's actually, you know, it's applicable to the environment.
And then with your job, are you going to be the head of a team who does all the media stuff, or are you the person?
Yeah, it's just me.
Woo! The team. The team is right. We're sitting with the media team of the
whole media team. Oh, the social media team anyway. Yeah. So it's pretty much just me or the other people in our teams. Like the umpires, they will come and say, "We need you to make this for this post or this video or whatever." So like the umpires and all that all come under it as well. So
So the videoing side of things, it's like, so videoing, photography, making the posters, doing all the graphic design and all that sort of stuff. Like is that something that you knew you kind of had to get into as you're doing it? Like videography, you're like, I'm gonna have to get good at that, or were you just kind of drawn towards that as well?
It was also something I was just drawn to. Like same with photography. I used to take the photos of my parents when I was little. You know, like or mum and dad, they had a camera out when we were little, so I was always around that kind of technology. And so also going back to what I said earlier about being on paint, you know, so that's graphic design. So pretty much I've been playing with that toy, you know, since today, really. And so it was kind of an area that did feel natural because it was, I guess, familiar.
And then the difference between like the kind of stuff that we do, so my reports go in and like barely anyone sees it. Your stuff now, especially with how prevalent social media is, and hopefully we're going to be selling tickets so that more people come to the game, support the team.
Everyone listening, come along, sign up memberships.
So all of that, you're going to see it more. And so many people, that's like a huge fan base who just by proxy of being a fan are going to see everything that you put out. How do you like take yourself away from that and just be like, I created that? But like, no, and then like not looking at it, because it can be difficult, right? Especially if you spot something that you're like, I was never happy with that. I'm still not happy with that.
So that's the thing. Instead of now having to rush a piece out, I can sit and process all of that, and if I don't like something, I can sit and change it. Without that time constraint. I think. So I think knowing that this is the pulse is graphic. This is the pulse. You know, it's I made it, but it's the pulse. It's quite interesting though when I upload it, and it's like, holy crap! I just got like 5,000 likes. I was like, I don't get that on anything else that I ever do. So having that massive audience is a little bit nerve wracking, but also knowing that the people there want to support the pulse. You know, a lot of social media people want to nitpick and make things, you know, like make it a problem. But those that are following the post, I know that they want to follow the post. You know, they're fans. So anything that comes out, they like it. They enjoy knowing that the posters, and so that's kind of part of what I want to do is have it a little bit more personalized with the players. You know, what do the players want to do? Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, so I guess
because that was something that was really cool. I don't know if you're watching the Moana Pacifica, their rollout of naming the teams and stuff. Players. Yeah, how like it's a brand new franchise, but like they already had so much buy-in because they were just like announcing players all the time and it's keeping people informed, and then like getting to know the players even before they're taking the field. Before it's like the power that just, you know, a couple of posts and then seeing the individualized like people coming out, like
it's like you're creating a community. Like in each part, even like this podcast, your podcast, it's like a community of people that watch and community of people that listen. So yeah, likewise with the posters, that except the community is way bigger than it's Wellington, you know, so, or at least. Yeah, so yeah, it's quite interesting being in that realm of having like 13,000 followers. It's like, like I've got like 500. You know?
And how do you so for that, like what are there must be perks, like you're working with a professional team. What then comes from that?
Well, the Cadbury Classic game, when I got transferred up to Wellington, I was kind of like, oh, will I get to play? I didn't, but then my boss was like, oh, Iz, what are you doing on Tuesday? And I was like, oh, I haven't got any plans Tuesday night. She said, do you want to go to the Silver Friends game? And I was like, how? Because, you know, people weren't allowed to go to those games because of, and she's like, oh, well, I got 2 tickets, you know, and blah, blah, blah's going the next day and blah, blah's going. Yeah, it was like, oh. Yeah. I only just started, and now I get to go, you know, and take a mate to the Silver Friends game. Whoa, so there was kind of interesting seeing that kind of those kind of perks, you know, actual work perks. So here you go, you get to go watch a game. Oh, then I ran into the manager at the game, and she's like, "Why are you in the stands? You should have come on the media team." And I was like, "Can I come tomorrow?" And she's like, "Yep." Really? Yeah. So then I did all of the behind the scenes of, you know, they let you know what you can do. Like you can't film. Because it's all under Sky. Right. So, you can't film until the first pass off. So once the first pass off happens, you can't film. Everything else after that is owned by Sky.
So Sky has the rights to the game.
Yeah. So you can't film the game. Sure. You know, like it's all that Sky's. Yeah. So that was interesting. You know, things like that. I was like, oh, you know, they own the footage. You know, events. You can't film it. I was like, oh, that's a whole new area that wouldn't have been a factor, you know, a while ago, because no one would have had cameras to film. So, yeah, it's interesting.
So a lot of that stuff, and then you get to travel with the team as well.
Yeah, cool. So we go into camp on the 29th of November. Yeah. Come in as a training. Everyone starts their training. Yeah, and then when we go away and travel the games, then I'll join them. Yeah. Yeah,
and is this so like as part of this? I guess when you're talking to the different players and whatnot, and you're pretty much profiling them, and then people are getting to know them. Is it just like for you? Do you see the characters that you know are going to come out, or are you just going to see what happens and then be like, "That cool, that's cool"?
I always find social media is such a weird place.
100%.
You know, so us, and so what I want from there is to more find out from the players how do they want to portray them. So you know, like maybe even just have a one-on-one with each of them and say like, I'm going to post about you, you know, like, but I need to know what you want, because that makes, I feel more comfortable posting that way rather than just saying, here's freaking anyone that's going up on screen. Yeah, so I think that's an area that is still new, you know, still new, but I have a bit of a rapport with most of the players because I play them. Yeah. You know, I've played them for the last maybe 3 or 4 years now. Yeah. So a lot of those teams, it's kind of like, oh, cool. I can see them and say, oh, we played, like, now I'm working with you. You know? So I'm not just a random guy on the court now. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess.
And the cool thing with that is I find it's something that we go through when you're doing research and you're interviewing people, that if you can make them feel comfortable, then you actually get a cool side of them that's as close to the real them as possible. So, like, if they already don't like you and you're trying to interview them, what you get might be like a sort of truth, but it's also like, I want to get out of here as soon as possible.
Short and sharp.
So, like, as you being that person who's allowed to express that to everyone else, I think it would be cool if you can, if you have that rapport and you're able to get that all going. No, it's exciting. It's really, really exciting. So for yourself, going into this, and you're going into the camp, and what are the things that you're telling yourself where you're just like, I'll go in there, do a good job, but these are like my values, and this is what I do with my job?
Oh, I think like kind of goes back to that time management thing. Yeah. So we have the whole calendar of the whole year of like every moment that will be present.
Yeah.
And so from there, I feel like each one of those days now is my process of like planning out what I'm gonna do, like what posts might go up, what like stories probably like in trainings, and you know, just to get the full interaction of the crowd, I guess, or with the followers. Oh man, that's my train of thought. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. We're just talking about the things that you just for what you want to do, so you're keeping your time management.
Oh, yeah.
But also just like how do we making sure I think that you keep the process fun and entertaining for yourself as well.
Yeah. Oh, well, I guess I feel that this job is fun.
Yeah.
As a whole, anyway. So it's kind of more making sure that the players find it fun as well, because then you know you get natural responses. You know, proper natural. In professional sports, it's very robotic.
Yeah.
I find, and you know, like the boys went out and executed well today. You know, like shout out to the boys. It's like it's the same. You know, it's those kind of, and I don't really enjoy those interviews.
Right.
Like, I'm like, you didn't need to do the interview because we just heard it from the other guy.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things where I kind of want to make it a little bit more personal in those ways, but not overstepping boundaries to making those players it's too much of their personal life. I don't get involved in that kind of stuff. It's this in the netball realm, this is what you do, so I guess that's what I'm still trying to figure out.
You're so right though with the whole I always forget that like the whole robotic, this is what you can say, this is what you can't say, and like I don't want to accidentally say something that now could become like a clickbait title, and then everyone goes off and like makes these huge stories about this one line that you said that you didn't quite mean like that. It's just like, that came out wrong.
Context.
Yeah. So, because I think even the ones that I still remember them, like I don't know if you remember Nick Cummins, the Honey Badger.
Oh yeah.
All of his interviews, he became like a sensation because he just gave you what no one else was doing.
He was saying his own thoughts,
Yeah. And then people like grew to love it. So it's just one of those things that if you create the right environment for that person, it can come out and actually be like, okay, that was cool, rather than being like, what the heck was that?
Yeah, and so when I got to interview those 16 people, that was I had to driving Uber kind of helped me ease people instantly.
Yeah,
because when I drove Uber, when someone got in your car, you could tell if they from their body language or when they entered, if they said hello when they got in the car. There's a whole bunch of things that happen. You're gonna have a good conversation.
Yeah.
Or they're not going to speak to you.
Yeah.
And so those are the kind of things I want to try and implement when I deal with the post players and say, like, I can ease your anxiety around being in front of a camera because I know that it's not easy, And so, we
even get it to the point where you just forget that the cameras are there. Like, I don't know if you saw, my sister was getting like a doco done, and we just like, we had this conversation. It was like a heart to heart about like growing up apart. But we had like the biggest cameras. We had our microphones and stuff.
Mics.
Yeah, and then we had the big one over the top, and they're just like, all right, just talk to each other about what, like, how difficult you found it. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
Like, what? Who are you?
Pause.
Cool. So
interesting. So your sister, what was the documentary? Or?
So they're doing, I don't know how much, I think what they're doing, it's 2000s babies who are turning 21 and they were born in 2000. So they're just tracking a bunch of them just to see how it's going. Like, I didn't know much about it. And I was just, sure, I had this conversation. But yeah, that was something else. And then these players pretty much live with that.
Yeah.
All the time.
When I was in around the media area for the Sky Sport, I was like, bro, there's literally cameras anywhere. You can't do anything without anyone seeing it. I know. It was quite interesting. Yeah, it was like,
that's why I always find, like, when you're watching it and they're like in a team huddle, how do none of them just like go like this at the camera? I've always wondered.
What if then they're like so staunchly listening to it, and it's like, bro, you just like, I'm sure I would, It's just
because I'd feel like anytime you feel that a camera's coming, you like, I was like, okay, act normal. Yeah. So how are you meant to like take in all the things that your coach is saying to you, what the like captain says, and then I've always been the biggest one was like when they do. like the haka or when they're doing the national anthems. If the camera was going past me, I could not look at it because it's so huge.
They look up, hey, look at this guy.
Right, so just the last stuff that I wanted to talk about was, so seeing where you are now and seeing how long that it took you to get here. Obviously, you have to go through, you have to learn all these different techniques, you have to freelance and pretty much just gain as much experience as you can to be ready for any opportunity that comes. Is there anything that you feel you wished was there for you as up and coming creatives?
Yeah, I think one thing I would have liked would have been, or like I know another like law, like this full law society. So like people that if you come into law, there's someone above you,
Yeah.
you know, and you can see the stairway.
Yeah.
But in terms of a creative pathway, there's not so much that. There's not so much a, I mean, it's not like a cookie cutter mold, eh?
Yeah.
Like no one's creative process, no one's really process is the same at all. So, but it would be interesting to, you know, come across people that also did freelance work and, you know, get tips from, you know, so that I don't have to go through that whole like failing phase.
Right.
You know, they can say, oh, before you go into animation, before you go in with these guys, you need to make sure they know X, Y, Z.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe going back to our tutors that taught us would have been better. But if there was, you know, peers, you know, like even like 1 year above you or something, that would have been probably more helpful in the process. And I think that's something I would like to have. I think what's his name? Petoni Groom.
Right.
He's got a they run, or before COVID,
Yeah.
they would run like get-togethers where other Pacific creatives would speak on their journey.
Oh, cool.
And you know, it was that kind of, I think something like that, and to grow it maybe further would be really interesting, a little bit more or not easier, but just streamlined, you know,
Right.
streamline the process a little
Yeah.
bit for the next ones coming up, because there's a new kind of field.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And then you have your people who specialize in different areas as well. So you could be like a graphic designer or an animator, but like I animate this stuff. And then it's just like, okay, we're all the same. And then people only see us as this because they're not part of the craft. But then you guys can all just kind of like see where collaborations can happen. And that's another thing I wanted to ask. Is it quite a collaborative field, or is it? Okay, it is.
It is. But once again, it's difficult to collaborate with people that you can collaborate with,
Right.
because there's some people who are like, oh yeah, their work's mean as, and then you like go and shoot with them, and they're like, you need to do this, you need to do this. It's
Right.
like, oh, like, oh, okay, I'll do it. But you know, and then on the flip side, someone's like, oh, bro, what would you like? You know, how would you shoot this? Or here's your camera, my camera, and we'll come together later. You know, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, that kind of thing is pretty interesting. Or what other people do, I only do audio, or
Yeah.
you know, I only do illustrations, and those kind of collaborations are pretty really helpful, because you also learn like that person's craft as much as your own, you know, and how it merges.
Yeah. And there's just going to be things where you start doing something, you're like, I can't remember where I picked that up, but I picked that up from someone else. I didn't learn that by myself. Yeah.
Definitely, like
Yeah.
it's so many times I'm like, oh, lucky I went to that random class, you know, or like lucky I watched that guy do that thing.
So before I get into the final question that I ask everyone, just for people who want to be a creative or are creative people, like not necessarily just in animation, but in anything like songwriting or just anywhere where they express themselves through something that we don't see as mainstream, what would you like tell them, or in terms of linking with people, or just practicing their craft? What's something that you wished you kind of had in your mind when you started it all?
Oh man, sorry, I just went completely blank. So can you just repeat the end of the
So
question
pretty
again?
much just
Yeah.
like, what was the biggest thing you wish you knew? So like, you know now, because you've been through the creative process, you've managed to work so many jobs. But back then, what is the one thing that you wish you like knew so that you could make the job easier for yourself?
I think I wish that I knew I was going to end up in a position.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're walking in the dark a lot, you know, and you just kind of feeling yourself around, and then realize, oh frick, I've had a blindfold on,
Yeah.
you know, and then you're kind of looking out like, oh, okay, I can see everything now. So I think with the something I wish I knew was just that one, I think I'd already anticipated it wasn't going to be easy.
Yeah.
Like that's something you really need to for people wanting to get into the creative field is that. But on the flip side, some people might find it easy. Some people might put one thing out and it goes absolutely viral and then hired. You know, so that's another avenue. I mean, I wish I knew about, but I wish we had that back in the day. But but for creatives, it's just find what you really enjoy, like whatever that is. And for me, this was really a hobby. You know, it was just something I really enjoyed, and I studied. I wanted to study. I wanted to learn more about it. And as it got along, it was like, oh, well, now it's my job. You know, and so, and it really is true. I think that when they say if you do love your job, you know, you don't actually work. You know, I like going into my office. You know, I like sitting down on my thing and doing what I want to do. So, just knowing that you can come out of at the other end, because the creative process is freaking understanding it all. It's like banging yourself against the wall. But so I reckon just keep at it, and know that you're not ever going to get it perfect. Ever. Like no matter what you think, or no matter how much you've thought about it, no matter how much you've planned it, perfection doesn't exist. But what you got to realize is that as long as you're better than you were yesterday, then you've done, you know, and anything that's perfection. You know, you're better than what you did yesterday. So now you can, you know, get to a point where you're so good at something that people have to hire you.
So that's so cool. That's really, really cool. And Jen, just talking about, you know, the hobby, turning a hobby into a job. I know for me, that was something that I was like, is that really what I want to do? Because I love it so much. Will it ruin it? But then it is true. Once you get the job that you love doing, you're like, oh, okay, no, it can work. It can work.
Absolutely.
So the last question that I asked everyone is just, what is something that you do every day, or close to every day, that makes you feel like you've fulfilled the day?
That I fulfilled the day. Man, that's a really good question.
So it doesn't have to be an everyday thing, but maybe like something that, you know, regularly.
Hang on, give me a second.
You got this, man.
Yeah. What do I do every day? I guess most, like when I have fulfilled something, you know, when it has been a fulfilling day, you know, sometimes I will write something down. Like on a post-it, and it'll be, maybe it could just be a line. Sometimes I write like a lot. But often I find that a line is okay, just to like close off my day, or close off my, sometimes, because a lot of times my brain is ticking. 100%. It's just constantly ticking, and when you kind of write something down, it takes that out of you. You know, projects it onto the paper, and you can, and then you can read it, and you, oh, okay, that means, you know, that was what happened during the day. Or,
for sure.
I guess I don't really have something that I do really, really like consistently, but I do find when I do that, I do feel more fulfilled in my day.
And do you find also when you do that sort of stuff, like it's only when your mind is ticking, or is it just like at a random time that you'll just write it down?
Or it could be when I'm overwhelmed. You know, it could, or it could be when I'm in a peaceful place. You know, so it just depends on what that might be. But knowing that I can put it down and I can articulate my thoughts, I feel like that's something that a lot of people need to explore about themselves, is to explore vocabulary, explore language, because it's so important. It's so important. It's so. Do you speak another language?
I was speaking Māori,
Yeah. So, do you find that being bilingual in ways you can connect, like it makes your vocabulary in English better?
I'd say so,
because you can think in that mindset. Because you know, two languages, they have a whole different mindset of, like, where their root is, and so any metaphor that comes out in Māori, it's not the same when it comes out in English.
Exactly.
So when you have to translate it, it's never perfect, but you know. So do you find that you're
we kind of speak in metaphor? So like all of everything that you understand about the world is all pictures, like because you're trying to see what someone's saying in English, but they've like got a literal thing about it. But then in your head, you're like, we don't have a word for that, but we have what it's like in a metaphor.
True.
So that's why you're just kind of like, it's a bit more poetic, I'd say.
Interesting.
But that was because that only came pretty much out. When I moved back to Rara, and my mum would like just speak to me in Māori. And then I just realized I was like, I had to like, you have to change your brain to like stop thinking, what does that mean in English, to being like, she's speaking to me in Māori.
Reply in Māori.
Just exactly. Yeah. So it's cool like that. Yeah, for sure. I think you're right. You're onto something. But you're all speaking different languages and so everything we do is language, right? Yeah.
I think it's. I watched the video somewhere and it was like, if you and a lion could speak the same language, you wouldn't be able to understand each other, because your references would be too far left field from each other that it wouldn't connect.
Yeah. So you'd have the same words, but your understanding of that word
completely different.
Right. Yeah, that's true, because of your perspectives and your worldview.
Yeah. But
What a thing to finish on, eh?
Mighty
notes, and then we got the lion coming. It's true though. It's true, and that's what this this podcast is about. Really, is trying to see that we all have different worldviews, but there's so many things that we connect on as well. The creative process, the struggle of having to go through everything. No, it's been awesome, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot for this.
Such a cool chat.
Yeah, it's been awesome, man.
And I hope that we get to see what you've been doing in the next little bit, right? Some stuff's going to come out.
Yeah, follow the post page and
and then your own personal stuff. Have you got a brand of creatives or anything that you're doing?
Oh well, like the animation. That's pretty much, I guess, the personal side of it.
Yeah.
First personal. So our animation studio is called The Village Hidden in the Wind.
The Village Hidden in the Wind.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's pretty much. You're right though. Finding your time to do your own creative expression is a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it goes into your work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do find something often when I'm stuck on what I'm creating for work. I'll just draw like Dragon Ball Z or like, or something that I'm familiar drawing, or like One Piece.
Yep.
And then when I go back to doing my work, it like flows a little bit better. Yeah, it's almost like there was a block and I needed to get that part out. Yeah, so man.
And awesome, man.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot for
awesome
that.
Awesome chat. So I'll tag you in everything. No, you're good. I'll tag you in everything that comes out, and we'll make sure that people are checking your stuff out. But hopefully it'll be a good season, and it'll be awesome to see what ends up coming out, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Awesome,
for
brother.
bringing me along.